Namaskar. Welcome to this Gyan Darshan session of School of Journalism and New Media Studies. Today, our topic is Swami Vivekananda on education. शिक्षा पर स्वामी विवेकानंद के विचार. This session is useful for all the participants, all the viewers, all our audiences, but specifically it is useful for our BA students, students of BA in journalism and digital media, because we have one paper BNME-001, Philosophy of Swami Vivekananda, in the second semester of BAFJDM program. So it will be useful specifically more for our BA students. And this topic, Swami Vivekananda education, is a part of that course BNME-001, Philosophy of Swami Vivekananda. We have Unit 10 focused and talking about the thoughts of Vivekananda on education and the women empowerment. So today we are fortunate enough, we are lucky enough, we have with us Professor Arvind Kumar Jha, Professor of School of Education, IGNOU. And he has a lot of experience in the field of education, and especially the Indian tradition in the education, the philosophy of education and other aspects of education. So sir, welcome to this session. And we are lucky enough, and our listeners and students and viewers are lucky enough to have you in this session.
Thank you.
Vivekananda, we all know that Swami Vivekananda is a propagator of a very old, ancient tradition of Indian wisdom and Indian philosophy and Indian knowledge. So, starting this discussion, sir, the first question is, what is Indian philosophy of education and how is it unique, or what are the uniqueness of this philosophy of education?
अमित जी बहुत अच्छा सवाल किया और आप तमाम व्यूअर्स के लिए मैं बताना चाहूँगा. When we try to understand what is Indian philosophy of education, we need to understand and we need to study what is Indian philosophy, because the almost all major and fundamental ideas that have been derived and which are used, discussed, deliberated in the name of Indian philosophy on education is from Indian philosophy. See, Indian philosophy of education is based on, two things. First, it talks about at the highest level, right, how to conjoin the humanism and idealism, and the secondly one, right, how to conjoin Paravidya and Aparavidya. So when we say Indian philosophy of education, so Indian philosophy in general talks about, number one, to understand the reality of this universe and the reality of and the universe of life and living, both in complete reality. Now, when we try to understand the reality of human existence, then we'll have to understand that the reality of human existence from the philosophical point of view, we always discuss in three senses. That is the ontological, epistemological, and axiological. Like, what is the reality that we want to understand in this human life as a human being, and how to know that reality, that is the epistemological dimension. And when we try to understand that reality as a human being in this cosmos, then what are the ethical dimensions that we need to keep in mind? Keeping this thing in mind, right, now let's try to understand Indian philosophy of education. When I say Indian philosophy of education, then it is always depicted in terms of liberation, mukti, right, moksha, these things. Now the question is, moksha for what? Mukti from what? Mukti from ignorance. So it is a journey from ignorance to knowledge, right? Or you can say it is a journey from darkness to light. Now, light for what? Light to understand, appreciate, and realize your own potential, right? So that you can understand in terms of your existence, not from the rationality and logicality point of view, but also from emotionality and relational point of view. So I can say Indian philosophy of education always highlights and underlines the importance of the journey from rationality to relationality. That is the interconnectedness. So universe is, we are within the universe. So in that sense, universe is connected to us and we are connected to the universe as well, right? And that's why in modern discourse on education, from the Indian philosophical point of view, we always say, you study whatever you want to study, but always try to understand your position in this universe from the existential reality point of view.
Thank you, sir. आपने बहुत ही सुंदर तरीके से you have explained very beautifully the Indian philosophy of education and the uniqueness of this philosophy. And as I told, as I discussed, that the Vivekananda was we can't see Vivekananda in isolation. He was just a part of chain and one of the most recent propagator of Indian wisdom. And as a monk, he traveled the whole India. And he saw the plight of Indian citizens or Indian people of that time, and was very painful. And always he was thinking how to bring out the Indian people from the very pathetic situation, economically and intellectually, and of course we were the political slave also at that time. So he considered education as one of the very important tool, and that's why he talked about a lot. He talked a lot about education, and when he established Ramakrishna Mission, propagating or spreading the education was one of the major, objectives of that Ramakrishna Mission. So if we will see, I will request the PCR to show the slide. When Vivekananda was talking about his idea of education, education is not the amount of information that is put into our brain and runs right there, undigested all your life. We must have life-building, man-making, character-making assimilation of ideas. If you have assimilated 5 ideas and made them your life and character, you have more education than any man who has got by heart a whole library. If education is identical with information, the libraries are the greatest sages in the world and encyclopedias are the rishis. So in this context, we saw his definition of education, his idea about the education. So, sir, I want to request you कि just explain the idea of education according to Vivekananda to our students.
Yeah. आपने जो अभी दिखाया slides, ये my idea of education पे based है. See, when we discuss and we deliberate from various point of view, particularly analytical point of view, we always see that the Swami Vivekananda's idea of education is based on the integration of 2 things, which I have just talked and discussed about. That is the integration of the humanism and idealism. Right? So he had always a human being in his mind, and anything and everything from the spiritual point of view or humanistic point of view or rational point of view or even the corporal point of view. Human being and its welfare was at its peak. So as I said, the fundamental principle of Swami Vivekananda's idea of education is based on, from my perspective, integration of 2 ideals. On the one hand, it is a humanistic ideals. On the other, it is the idealistic ideals, based on idealism. The second point, as I said, that Indian philosophy talks about the integration of 2 kinds of vidyas, Paravidya and Aparavidya. Similarly, in Vivekananda's concept of education, you will find it is the connectedness, or you can say integration of again the 2 things, the Paravidya, that is the worldly, beyond worldly knowledge, metaphysical knowledge, and the Aparavidya. So Paravidya and Aparavidya. So when I say that it's not only the worldly knowledge that is important in education, but the metaphysical knowledge as well, which is directly related to the spiritual knowledge. Now, why spiritual knowledge? To understand this, it is very important to understand who is a human being. As I said, in the idea of Swami Vivekananda's concept of education, a human being was always at the center. So, the first question that we should understand, who is a human being, right? From the materialistic point of view, human being is a biological, social, cultural being, that's it. But from the spiritual point of view, human being is not only these things. Human being is a spiritual being as well. And that's why, while defining who is a human being, it can be said from the perspective of Vivekananda's idea of education that human being is a biune of humanity and divinity both. So his idea of education, on the one hand, right, underlines the importance of corporal development, physical development, right? At the same time, it's also about the development of the spiritual well-being of a humankind, right? So until unless I feel connected, interconnected, not only with the fellow being, but the cosmos, but also with the fellow human beings. So at the human level, all humans are one. And that's why he has talked about universal humanhood, universal relation. And where, I mean, spirituality primarily, emphasizes on all these concepts, that oneness of the idea, the oneness of the thoughts, oneness of the mind. Definitely I'll deliberate in a short while. So Swami Vivekananda's idea of education is a holistic in its sense, because most of the fundamental ideas are derived from Vedantic view, which when you will study Ramakrishna Mission's books, Ramakrishna Mission's mission itself, the ideals, and his Guru Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa's ideas, you will understand in totality that what are the ideals. Keeping those ideals in mind, we can think of a model of education.
Thank you, sir. You talked about the holistic view about the education. Swamiji traveled, as I mentioned, Swamiji traveled all over the India as a monk. And when you are traveling as a monk, you are crossing the villages, the deserts, the mountains. So it is you can say the ground-rooted travel as a monk. So that experience was with Swamiji. He traveled America. He traveled many countries of Europe. And so he experienced both the societies. One society, West society, with all type of materialistic advancement and development, and on the other hand a great society, but at that time it was in pathetic situation, painful condition. So when he talked about the education, or he talked about the better world, he was talking about the integration, as you mentioned, integration of worldly things with the spiritual things. In West, he found that they developed materialistically a lot, but they were lacking spiritual elements in their life, and that's why that is also a type of suffering. In India, he was always telling that India doesn't need religion and spirituality because we have enough on that front at least. So here he saw the society has the spiritual element, at least in the root level, in the base level of philosophy and thinking, but suffering due to the worldly development or materialistic development. So he always advocated about the integration of materialistic with the spiritual development and upliftment. So when Swamiji was talking about education in the context of India or in the context of entire world also, he was putting emphasis on the character building. Not just providing the useful information is education, but education should create a good human being, a complete human beings, at least near to completion, by emphasizing on the character building.
Right.
So I just want, I request you to explain ki why so much emphasis on character building in education.
See, Swamiji always emphasized on the concept of education, citing three things. One was the man-making, character building, right? Life building, and it is spiritual awakening, right? Among all these four, very rightly you said, when he traveled all over the world, he realized this is the character that distinguishes not only at the individual level, but also at the civilizational level. So it is the character that describes, distinguishes, and identifies which civilization is better than another civilization, right? And perhaps keeping those concepts in mind, he emphasized time and again that our education system must emphasize on character building. Let's try to understand character, right? First, what is character? Character is nothing but the sum total of all the tendencies that human beings possess. Now, when you discuss tendencies, you need to discuss tendencies at the two levels. One is to integrate ideals with the life for the upliftment of human reality. And the second is not only to integrate that, but also to raise your ideals so that your life itself becomes the ideals. Now, when we try to understand character in terms of these two tendencies, then you will find that in Swami Vivekananda's ideas of education and character building and character development, he is trying to understand it in terms of character and dharma, right? When you say that is, you can call it like, what is my dharma as a human being? So I should be in a position to devote my life to my duty. As a teacher, what is my duty? To study and to help students to study, right? As a student, what is my duty? Study, study, study in terms of swadharma. So my dharma and duty both are always contextualized, right, in terms of characterization. So character building is important so that I can understand my duty, my position in the society and culture, and so that I can contribute positively, constructively in the overall development of my own being first, then my family, my society, and my nation. So nation building and character both are interrelated. And perhaps that was the reason he emphasized more and more that, I mean, you may be a knowledgeable person, but if you don't have character, then you will fail to understand where to apply this knowledge. Should I apply this knowledge for the constructive work, or should I apply this knowledge for the destructive work? Because in society, it is seen many knowledgeable people are there, but when they are not sound on their character, and then they fail to understand, differentiate, and distinguish right from the wrong, right? So always they indulge themselves in the wrong things, and they say we are doing the right things, right? So perhaps that was the reason he emphasized more and more that our education should emphasize on character building, not only man-making process and the life-making process or life-building process.
बिल्कुल सर, जैसा आपने कहा कि नॉलेज एक पावर के रूप में भी है, और अगर जिसके पास है उसका कैरेक्टर, उसका चरित्र अगर उत्तम नहीं है तो उसका मिसयूज भी, दुरुपयोग भी हो सकता है. और आपने कैरेक्टर को भी बहुत सही तरीके से और बहुत ही आसान तरीके से परिभाषित किया कि अगर हम कैरेक्टर को समझना चाहें तो वो व्यक्ति जो अपने स्वधर्म के प्रति जो जागरूक है, और स्वधर्म का अर्थ है कि उसकी ड्यूटीज क्या है, उसके कर्तव्य क्या है. हर व्यक्ति समाज में अलग अलग समयों पर अलग अलग भूमिका में होता है. आपने शिक्षक का उदाहरण दिया कि उसका स्वधर्म क्या है, छात्र का स्वधर्म क्या है, वैसे ही डॉक्टर्स हैं, इंजीनियर्स हैं, वैज्ञानिक हैं, प्रशासनिक अधिकारी हैं, राजनेता हैं, तो सबके अपने अपने स्वधर्म हैं। और अच्छा चरित्र उस व्यक्ति का माना जाता है जिसको उसके स्वधर्म का ज्ञान है, स्वधर्म के प्रति वो जागरूक है और स्वधर्म के अनुसार ही वो उसके पास जो ज्ञान रूपी शक्ति है उसका वह प्रयोग करता है।
बहुत अच्छा।
सो नॉलेज इज अ पावर एंड इफ यू हैव अ गुड कैरेक्टर, as Professor Jha told, that you will utilize that power in a constructive way. And knowledge, again, knowledge is a power, and if you don't have proper character or good character, it can be misused for the destruction of the society.
Right.
So knowledge is just a neutral power, and the utilization of that knowledge is based on the character of that person who is posing that power. So in this sense, character is very important for the society, and since education is the tool which shapes the society, whatever society we are seeing at present or what we want to see in future, everything will go through the, you can say that the tool of the education.
Right.
So ये बहुत ही आवश्यक है चरित्र निर्माण, जैसा कि सर ने भी बताया। और अभी हम एक छोटा सा अंतराल लेंगे, एक ब्रेक लेंगे, और वी विल कंटिन्यू दिस डिस्कशन आफ्टर ब्रेक ऑल्सो। सो बी विथ अस एंड वी आर टेकिंग अ शॉर्ट ब्रेक।
जी,
थैंक यू। पत्रकारिता या जनसंचार के क्षेत्र में आपकी रुचि है तो आपके लिए इग्नू लाया है पत्रकारिता एवं जनसंचार में एमए का कार्यक्रम।
यह कार्यक्रम हिंदी, अंग्रेजी और तमिल इन तीनों भाषाओं में उपलब्ध है।
इस कार्यक्रम के लिए न्यूनतम योग्यता की यदि हम बात करें,
कोई भी छात्र जो स्नातक किया हुआ है किसी भी विषय में, वो हमारे स्नातकोत्तर प्रोग्राम में एडमिशन ले सकता है।
इस कार्यक्रम को आप न्यूनतम 2 वर्षों में कर सकते हैं। यदि आप किन्हीं कारणों से आप 2 वर्ष में नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, तब आपके लिए 4 वर्षों के अंदर इस कार्यक्रम को समाप्त कर पाने की आपके पास फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी है।
यह कार्यक्रम आपको ओडीएल, ओपन डिस्टेंस लर्निंग, जो हमारा ट्रेडिशनल मॉडल है वहाँ भी अवेलेबल है, और दूसरा ऑनलाइन मॉडल पे भी शुरू किए हैं।
ऑनलाइन माध्यम में एक एलएमएस होता है जिसमें आपको लॉगिन करना होता है और फिर उसी विंडो पर, उसी प्लेटफॉर्म पर आपको सारी जानकारियां दिया जाता है, और यह सुविधाजनक है छात्र छात्राओं के लिए। वो दुनिया के किसी भी कोने से बैठकर ऑनलाइन माध्यम से एमए पत्रकारिता एवं जनसंचार में कर सकते हैं। 16 कोर्सेज 2 वर्षों में विभक्त हैं। 8 कोर्सेज आपको प्रथम वर्ष में करने हैं, 8 कोर्सेज आपको द्वितीय वर्ष में करने हैं, जिनमें 3 प्रैक्टिकल कोर्सेज भी हैं, प्रायोगिक कोर्सेज भी हैं। इनमें से 3 में से 2 प्रैक्टिकल और प्रायोगिक कोर्सेज आपको प्रथम वर्ष में करना है। यह कार्यक्रम मॉड्यूलर स्ट्रक्चर में, मॉड्यूलर संरचना में बनाया गया है कि यदि आपने नामांकन लिया और 1 वर्ष के बाद यदि आपने इस कार्यक्रम को छोड़ा, तब भी आपको पत्रकारिता एवं जनसंचार में पीजी डिप्लोमा मिलेगा, और यदि आपने दोनों वर्ष पूरी तरह से समाप्त किए तब आपको एमए की डिग्री मिलेगी, जो कि पत्रकारिता एवं जनसंचार में होगी।
इग्नू पहला ऐसा विश्वविद्यालय है जो पूरे साल में 2 बार दाखिला लेता है। इसी तरह हमारा जो एग्जाम है, जो टर्म इन एग्जाम होता है, जिसे वार्षिक परीक्षा कहते हैं, वो भी दिसंबर और जून में लिए जाते हैं।
कोई भी ऐसा क्षेत्र जो पत्रकारिता एवं जनसंचार से जुड़ा हुआ है, वह इस प्रोग्राम से छूटा नहीं है, चाहे वह टेलीविजन हो, चाहे वह रेडियो हो, चाहे वह ऑनलाइन माध्यम हो, चाहे वह विज्ञापन हो, चाहे वह जनसंपर्क हो।
ऐसा मॉडल, ऐसा फ्लेक्सिबल ऑप्शन बाकी विश्वविद्यालयों के पास नहीं है।
यदि आपकी इन क्षेत्रों में रुचि है तो आइए और इग्नू के पत्रकारिता एवं जनसंचार में एमए, जो कि हिंदी माध्यम से चलाया जा रहा है, उसमें नामांकन लीजिए। आप सभी का स्वागत है। Welcome back to the session. We were discussing on Swami Vivekananda on education, शिक्षा पर स्वामी विवेकानंद के विचार. We discussed many aspects of this topic, and we talked about the Indian philosophy of education. We discussed what was the idea of Swami Vivekananda about education, and why he was so much keen on the character building that we also discussed. Now, we will continue this discussion, and one of the famous definition or one of the famous statement about the education was education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. This statement may be little vague or little complex for the students, and that's why we have Professor Jha, and I request sir to explain this statement. Sir.
See, this is a very, very prominent statement, and I think in almost all educational texts, right, and which refer to Swami Vivekananda, you will find this statement is there. We need to understand this statement at the two levels, right? One at the manifestation level, another at the perfection level, right? First, let me discuss at the perfection level, and then I'll come to the manifestation level. When I say at the perfection level, what does it mean to perfect? I mean perfection of the things which are already in the man. See, and that's why when we were discussing about the Swami Vivekananda's idea of education, we say we need to understand first who is a human being. So human being is a mixture of both humanity and divinity. When I say humanity, means human values. Human values are many, right? Knowledge is one of them, because we are discussing on the concept of education. Education deals with and deals in what? Education deals with and deals in knowledge. And Swamiji says here that the knowledge is already inside you. Due to ignorance or due to lack of awareness, you don't know about that knowledge. The moment you become aware of, right, and then what you do, you discover or uncover your ignorance, right, and you will find, oh, hey, knowledge is already there. You can understand this and from many examples. For example, there is a student and he doesn't know that he can be a good speaker. So always he emphasizes more and more on writing skills. One day he delivers something and all of a sudden he comes to know, oh my God, somebody appreciates and says, hey, you can be a good speaker. When he realizes, is it really true? And he starts working on that idea that I can be not only a good writer, I can be a good speaker as well. And very soon he realizes, after some efforts only, that hey, people have started liking his ideas, the way he propagates, the way he conceptualizes, and the way he puts before the audience. And all of a sudden, one day, he becomes a very good speaker. It's not that he struggled with speaking, right? Since that ability was already there, he only needs to understand that ability, identify, recognize, and make it as a perfect part of his personality, right? And the perfect practices can make you perfect. Not every practice can make you perfect. And suddenly he becomes whatever he wanted to be. Now, so perfection means from the knowledge point of view, from the skill point of view, from the value point of view, you can perfect. Somebody, identifies, my heart lies with social service. And he starts giving some time for the social service. All of a sudden realizes now social service has become an integral part of life. He is not only helping the society, but he is realizing himself through the social service as well. This is the one dimension. The second, manifestation. Manifestation of what? Here you need to understand, when Swami Vivekananda made this statement, he wanted you to manifest in terms of divinity aspects of your human reality. Or you can say humanly being. What does it mean? It means, as I said earlier, who is a human being? Or what is a human being? It is biune of the two, humanity and divinity. So manifestation in terms of divine power that every individual being, holds. Right? Because in Indian culture and Indian philosophical thought system, we are the part of the larger reality, right? The larger cosmos. And that's why I say, Aham Brahmasmi, right? It means I am the part of that ultimate reality, and that ultimate reality may be anything. That ultimate reality for Shankaracharya, it was a Brahma. That ultimate reality for some may be God, Ishwar, or anything. But at the same time, that ultimate reality for a mathematics student or mathematics teacher may be the concept of zero. So Shunya is the ultimate reality, right? So now what you have to do, you have to manifest that. When you manifest that, which is already inside you, and that it means you have to realize, recognize yourself in terms of the part of that universal self. So, स्व को जानना, स्व के द्वारा अपनी divine power को जानना ही manifestation है. So this statement can be understood at the two levels, perfection and manifestation. Perfection in terms of knowledge, skills, and other dimensions. But when I say humanity, right, manifestation at the level of not only humanity, but the divinity as well, right? So this is my understanding of, manifestation of the things that are already there inside you.
With the help of very simple examples, Sir explained this little complex statement about the education by Swami Vivekananda. As we discussed earlier also, that Swami Vivekananda traveled the whole country, and he was a great nationalist. And when he saw the plight of his countrymen, he was very painful. He was in pain, and he was always thinking how to bring our countrymen from this pathetic condition. And he found, after visiting the Western countries also and comparing the situation, he was always in support to spread the education. And he was thinking that by spreading the education, by providing the education to the general masses, India can regain its old glory. So I just want to know your opinion on this thought, sir.
Okay. So your question is directly related to two ideas. One, the mass education and universal access to the masses for universal education, right? See, I mean, in almost all thought system, in all times and climes, the importance of education has been underlined and highlighted, right? Everybody and every thought system has highlighted the importance of education. Now, as you rightly said, for the nation making, nation building or national development, what is needed? Human beings of that particular nation must develop. So until and unless human beings develop, nation cannot develop. And for the development of human beings, for the development of man and women, education is the need, not a need, rather I am saying the need. Why I am saying so? Because when you educate yourself, when I say I am trying to educate myself, it means I am trying to understand myself. And when I'm saying I'm trying to understand myself, it means I'm trying to make knowledgeable myself. And when I'm trying to say I am trying to make knowledgeable myself, it means I'm trying to make myself a rational being, right? But for the nation building and for the human development, which is man-making process, to make a man, right, you not only require rationality and logicality, but also you require, as I said earlier also, emotionality and relationality. So when one human being is related to another and all human beings of a particular nation identify themselves as a relational being, it will be very, very easy to identify oneself on the basis of humanity. Forget about, the regionality or the religion or the caste or the hierarchy or etc. etc. So that's why Swami Vivekananda wanted that in India everyone should be educated. Why? Because only an educated person can understand the things in a rational way without compromising with emotionality and relationality. See, I have always emphasized, right, that rationality should not be viewed in isolational term. Rationality is a contextual term. And when you are trying to educate yourself or you are trying to help somebody else to educate himself or herself, being a teacher, my job is to help my students to educate himself or herself. In that process, I'll help him not only to grow in terms of rationality so that I can apply my logic whenever it is necessary to distinguish right from the wrong, right, or good and bad, etc., etc. But without compromising the emotional dimension of existential reality of a human being and the relational dimension as well. So keeping that in mind, right, because he wanted to see India becoming great again, because India was great. When almost all civilizations of the world were, at the cradle stage, India had the 6 great schools of thought: Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Buddhism and Jainism. And all these schools of thought contributed to understand what is this universe, who is a human being, how to live a life which is ethical in nature, and how to serve the humanity and mankind, right, to grow together, right? And that's why Swami Vivekananda was of the opinion that this is not possible through preaching only. There is a need to have education. Education which is a formal in its concept and which is a formal in its implementation as well.
Sir has rightly highlighted the need of education to a revival of India's ancient glory or past glory. And Swamiji was of this opinion that help should not come from outside. We should make our countrymen or the people empowered enough so that they can help themselves. And that's why his statement, I request PCR to go for the slide. Our part of the duty lies in imparting true education to all men and women in society. As an outcome of that education, they will of themselves be able to know what is good for them and what is bad, and will spontaneously eschew the latter. So once the countrymen, once the people got education, they got empowerment, they will be able to understand what is good and what is bad for them. They can eliminate bad, they can thought about the ways to come out from the bad things, and these things they can do by their own. So only thing is to provide education, right education. And he was also warning that education should be right, and the mixture of, and the combination of the blend of both materialistic development and the skills as well as the spiritual foundations and elements. Only then it will be the balanced education. So this was the Swamiji's idea. We all are talking about the National Education Policy 2020. And if you will see the idea of Swami Vivekananda on education, you will find many things are, matching with the recent, the new National Education Policy 2020. And one of the thing was the skill development and the employment-oriented education. In 80s, Swamiji was thinking about the education integrating with the skill component and the employment orientation, because he wanted to bring prosperity in the country also, the materialistic prosperity also. So, sir, I just want to know your opinion on the skill related component and employment orientation in the education, and what were the views of Vivekananda on that?
Right. बहुत अच्छा सवाल आपने पूछा. देखिए, दो चीज समझना बहुत जरूरी है. एक कि जब हम कहते हैं कि मनुष्य अपने देवत्व को प्राप्त करे, राइट, तो बिना मनुष्यत्व को प्राप्त किए हुए वो देवत्व को प्राप्त नहीं कर सकता. अब वो मनुष्यत्व को प्राप्त करने के लिए अगर वो मानव है, अगर वो एक ह्यूमन बीइंग है, तो उसे रोटी, कपड़ा और मकान की जरूरत होगी. क्योंकि जब तक वो भूखा है, जब तक वो गरीब है, तब तक आप कहेंगे कि इन चीजों के बारे में सोचे बहुत मुश्किल है. रेयर लोग ऐसा कर पाते हैं. तो विवेकानंद जी अवेयर थे कि सब अपने भूख से लड़ते हुए, लाचारी से लड़ते हुए, गरीबी से लड़ते हुए इस मुकाम पे नहीं पहुंच पाएंगे. तो आवश्यक है कि पहले जो मेटेरियलिस्टिक नीड है, राइट, आपने बहुत सही कहा कि मेटेरियलिस्टिक और स्पिरिचुअल दोनों होना चाहिए. तो मेटेरियलिस्टिक नीड को पूरा करें, क्योंकि मेटेरियल डेवलपमेंट ही नहीं है, मटेरियल्स ही आपके पास नहीं है, तो आप फिर ग्रो कैसे करेंगे. Perhaps that was the point. He wanted that every human being should be self-reliant. And to become a self-reliant, every human being needs certain kind of skills to survive. And to survive in terms of three things which I have highlighted now. So to survive, three things are needed. I need bread and butter, I need shelter, I need clothes. And to have all these three things, I need, in today's language, money. And to have money, without having knowledge and skill, I can't have money. And if I don't have money to fulfill my basic needs, forget about the higher needs, which we call spiritual needs. Right? So, that's why Swami Vivekananda, time and again, has emphasized in his writings, in his speech, in his, almost every efforts, that everyone should be skill oriented, as India was. There was not a single individual in India, I'm talking about ancient India, before, the foreign attacks took place, that everybody was skilled in its own sense. Everybody was skilled. And imparting skill was one of the primary goals in almost all educational centers, right? And And as I said right now, if you are a skill, you can earn money. And if you have money, you can fulfill your lower needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy also talks about higher needs and lower needs. So first you need to satisfy your lower needs. And to satisfy your lower needs, you need to make yourself skill-oriented. Perhaps that's why today, even in the field of higher education, we are emphasizing that our students should be skill-oriented, right? Without compromising the knowledge dimension of the student life. Now, the second thing, you said that why I should be skill-oriented and why our education should be skill-oriented and why our education should be in a position to provide the employment. See, if education fails to provide me the employment, education fails me to help me to realize my potential through my skills, why that education should be called as an education? An education is an education when an educated person, through that education, whatever skills he or she has mastered, are in a position to apply in the society, not only to benefit himself and his family, but also the larger society and the nation. And that's why I recommend that, we need to think again about our higher education, which should be skill-oriented and employment-oriented also. I'm not saying that knowledge construction should not be the main goal of higher education. They should remain, and they will remain, right? But at the same time, as the nature of the society is changing, as the nature of the world is changing, right? As the nature of, the nature of human being is changing, I think education should empower me through skill and employment both, right? Along with, and once when these requirements are fulfilled and I'm in a position to satisfy my lower needs, obviously I'll be tempted to, I'll be motivated to, I'll be inspired to achieve the higher goals of my life. And that will be the spiritual goal. So one thing is very clear, and that's why Swamiji, could identify and see, until and unless the material needs are satisfied, right? The higher needs or the spiritual needs or the spiritual well-being of the humankind, which is the ultimate goal of any education, cannot be achieved.
बहुत सुंदर बात आपने सर कही कि मनुष्य के विकास की एक यात्रा है। हमारा आदर्श है कि हम देवत्व को प्राप्त करें, लेकिन वह प्रारंभ होता है कि हम पहले मनुष्यत्व को प्राप्त करें और फिर देवत्व को प्राप्त करने की ओर अग्रसर होते हैं। और सामान्य स्थितियों में या सामान्य उदाहरणों में यह संभव नहीं है कि बिना मनुष्यत्व की जो आवश्यकताएं हैं उसको पूरी किए बिना हम देवत्व की ओर अपनी यात्रा ले जा सकते हैं। और यही कारण था कि स्वामी जी कहा करते थे कि भूखे लोगों को धर्म की बातें बताना सबसे बड़ा पाप है, क्योंकि पहली आवश्यकता उनकी रोटी की है, पहले उनका पेट भरेगा, उनकी जो सामान्य आवश्यकताएं हैं, जो एक मनुष्य के नाते जो उनकी जरूरतें हैं, पहले वो पूरी होनी जरूरी है, फिर हम आध्यात्मिक चर्चाओं की ओर आगे बढ़ते हैं। और स्वामी जी आज से, जैसे मैंने कहा कि तकरीबन 120-130 वर्ष पहले वह क्या सोचा करते थे, वो इस उनकी एक लेटर के एक पोर्शन में आप देख सकते हैं कि ही वॉज टॉकिंग कि gradually in these main centers will be taught agriculture, industry, etc. and workshops will be established for the furtherance of arts. To sell the manufactures of those workshops in Europe and America, associations will be started like those already in existence. It will be necessary to start centers for women exactly like those for men. So at that time he was thinking about the education centers which can impart the skills and the technical knowledge to the men and women, and associating the product distribution also, the business also. So educational centers providing training and the entities which can market those products created in these workshops. So this type of combination ये सोचना लगभग 130-140 वर्ष पहले यह भी अपने आप में बड़ी बात थी, और उन चीजों को हम देख रहे हैं कि अब हम अपना रहे हैं अपने जीवन में। दूसरी बात जो पिछले प्रश्न की चर्चा में सर ने कही थी कि शिक्षा को हर व्यक्ति तक ले जाने के लिए अब आके हमने राइट टू एजुकेशन की बात की है कि एजुकेशन यूनिवर्सली सबके लिए होना चाहिए, ये मैंडेटरी है। 1893 में एक पत्र में स्वामी जी ने ये बात कही थी कि सबसे पहले तो मास एजुकेशन, शिक्षा को हम अधिकतम लोगों तक ले जाएं, और उसके बाद हम शिक्षा को अनिवार्य बनाएं। इन दोनों चीजों की आवश्यकता है बारी बारी से, ताकि हम अपने देश को जो हर तरह की समस्याओं में जो हमारा देश घिरा हुआ है उसको हम निकाल सकें, और पुनः जो हमारा अतीत का गौरव है, एक गौरवशाली इतिहास रहा है, उस स्थिति को हम प्राप्त कर सकें। इसके लिए 1893 में वो ये बातें करते हैं। तो ये दिखाता है कि ऐसे युग नायक जो होते हैं वो समय से बहुत आगे सोचते हैं। आज हम उन चीजों पर चर्चा कर पा रहे हैं, उनको इंप्लीमेंट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। सर, अब समय हमारे पास बहुत सीमित है, बहुत संक्षेप में 2-3 मिनट में मैं चाहूंगा कि आज के जो हमारे बच्चे हैं, जो करंट वर्ल्ड में जी रहे हैं, वो स्वामी विवेकानंद के शिक्षा से संबंधित जो बातें हैं, उनके आइडियाज हैं, उसका उपयोग कैसे कर सकते हैं, उससे क्या सीख सकते हैं?
देखिए, पहली बात तो स्वामी जी की जो लाइफ है वही उनके लिए उपदेश और उदाहरण दोनों है ना। कि एक व्यक्ति जो ये कहा करता था अपने दूसरे गुरु के बारे में, स्वामी रामकृष्ण परमहंस के बारे में, कि वो पाखंडी है, वो ढोंगी है, वो स्पिरिचुअलिटी की बात करता है, वो कुछ भी नहीं है। और एक तरफ तो इनके ये थे, और उसी तरफ उनका जो बाद में गुरु बने, यही स्वामी रामकृष्ण परमहंस, वो कहा करते थे सबसे कि एक दिन नरेंद्र जरूर आएगा, एक दिन नरेंद्र जरूर आएगा। तो सब कहते थे कि नहीं, वो तो आपके बारे में बहुत ही विचित्र अवधारणा रखता है, वो आपके पास क्यों आएगा। वो कहते थे कि नहीं, एक दिन जरूर आएगा। मैं क्यों ये उदाहरण आप सबके समक्ष रख रहा हूं? क्योंकि स्वामी रामकृष्ण परमहंस को ये विश्वास था, सेल्फ बिलीफ था कि नरेंद्र आएगा। तो पहली बात जो छात्र कर सकते हैं वो यही कर सकते हैं कि अपने में विश्वास करो। क्योंकि स्वामी विवेकानंद जी कहते भी थे कि जो मनुष्य दुनिया के सभी चीजों में विश्वास करता और जो स्वयं में विश्वास नहीं करता, उससे बड़ा एथिस्ट कोई नहीं है, उससे बड़ा एथिस्ट कोई नहीं है। सेल्फ बिलीफ आज जेन जी कहलाते हैं लोग, और आप देखेंगे कि वो लोग बहुत टैलेंटेड हैं, वो लोग कीन भी है नॉलेज के लिए, उनमें एनर्जी भी है, सब कुछ है, लेकिन मुझे कई बार दिखता है कि वो सेल्फ डाउट की स्थिति में रहते हैं। कि मान लीजिए मैंने कुछ पोस्ट किया सोशल मीडिया पे और लोगों ने लाइक नहीं किया, अरे मैं अच्छा नहीं हूं क्या मैंने अच्छा नहीं किया? तो इन सब स्थितियों से बचने के लिए स्वामी विवेकानंद के एजुकेशन के एक आइडिया से जो सीख सकते हैं हमारे आज के युवा और आज के छात्र, वो है सेल्फ बिलीफ। उससे बड़ा कुछ भी नहीं है। जो स्वयं में विश्वास नहीं करता, मैं तो कहता हूं वो किसी ईश्वर पे भी विश्वास नहीं कर सकता है, और वो तो एथिस्ट भी नहीं हो सकता है, क्योंकि एथिस्ट को भी पता है कि ईश्वर नहीं है। तो इसलिए सेल्फ बिलीफ पे काम करना। दूसरी बात मैं ये कहूंगा कि और क्या सीख सकते हैं, तो उसी स्वामी रामकृष्ण परमहंस के और नरेंद्र के मिलन की एक घटना आपको बताता हूं कि जब नरेंद्र मिलने आए तो उस समय स्वामी रामकृष्ण परमहंस कहते हैं कि ज्यादातर समय वो मां काली की पूजा किया करते थे। तो मां काली के सामने बैठ के ध्यान मग्न थे। तो नरेंद्र पीछे से आते हैं और स्वामी रामकृष्ण हंस को पता चलता है कि नरेंद्र आ चुका है। तो कहते हैं कि आओ नरेंद्र, तुम आ गए, पूछो तुम क्या पूछना चाहते हो। तो स्वामी विवेकानंद कहते हैं, एक प्रश्न पूछते हैं। कहते हैं कि नहीं, प्रश्न मैं क्यों पूछूं, आप बताइए कि मेरे मन में क्या प्रश्न है। तो स्वामी रामकृष्ण परमहंस कहते हैं, हाँ ये भी मुझे पता है कि तुम्हारे मन में क्या प्रश्न है। और जब उस प्रश्न, तो कहते हैं कि बताइए वो क्या प्रश्न है। तो कहते हैं कि तुम्हारे मन में ये पहला प्रश्न ये है मैं थोड़ा स्टोरी को छोटा कर रहा हूं क्योंकि समय की कमी है। और उस प्रश्न को सुनते ही नरेंद्र रामकृष्ण परमहंस के चरणों में गिर जाते हैं और फिर पूछते हैं कि आपको कैसे पता चला कि यही प्रश्न मेरे मन में। तो रामकृष्ण परमहंस ने पहला ज्ञान स्वामी विवेकानंद को देते हैं और वो ज्ञान हम सब के लिए सार्वभौमिक है और हमेशा उसकी इंपॉर्टेंस रहेगी। वो कहते हैं कि हम सब एक ही माइंड के पार्ट हैं, हम सब एक यूनिवर्सल माइंड के पार्ट हैं, राइट। इसीलिए मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले कहा था कि हमारे छात्र यह सीख सकते हैं कि वो अपने को मनुष्य कैसे बनाएं। हमारे छात्र यह सीख सकते हैं कि अपने चरित्र का निर्माण कैसे करें इन टर्म्स ऑफ ड्यूटीज एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज। हमारे छात्र यह समझ सकते हैं और इस पे काम कर सकते हैं और जानने की कोशिश कर सकते हैं कि उनका स्वधर्म क्या है, उनका स्व क्या है, जिसके लिए उनको अपना सर्वस्व देना है। और मैं तो साफ कहता हूं और कई बार अपने छात्रों से कहा है कि छात्र होने के नाते मेरा स्वधर्म और स्वकर्म दोनों ही है स्वाध्याय। बिना स्व को जाने, बिना अध्ययन किए हुए हम कुछ भी नहीं जान सकते। और क्या कर सकते हैं आप यह भी कर सकते हैं कि कैसे हम सब एक दूसरे से कनेक्टेड हैं, अलग नहीं है। रंग अलग हो सकता है, धर्म अलग हो सकता है, जाति अलग हो सकती है, भाषा अलग हो सकती है, लेकिन मनुष्य होने के नाते चूंकि हम एक ही देवत्व के पुत्र हैं, हम सभी, तो हम सब मनुष्य एक ही हैं।
Thank you, sir. It was a big topic, huge topic, and it was difficult to, complete the whole discussion within the time period of 1 hour. But thank you very much, sir. You have explained everything in a very simple words, which was required for our undergraduate students. And I hope our viewers found this session very useful for them. Thanks for joining. Thank you.